Steelers Nation, stop everything you're doing right now because this move just came out of nowhere. The Pittsburgh Steelers have just made another signing that has everyone talking, and this one connects directly to the Aaron Rodgers era in Green Bay. If you want to stay locked in on every single roster move, every contract extension, and every bit of breaking news coming out of Pittsburgh, smash that subscribe button right now because things are heating up fast. All right, so let's talk about what just went down. The Steelers have officially signed veteran tight end Robert Tonyan to the roster. Now, if that name sounds familiar to you, it should. This is a guy who has serious history with some key people now in the Steelers organization. We're talking about a reunion that nobody really saw coming, but when you start connecting the dots, it actually makes a whole lot of sense. Tonyan is back together with head coach Mike McCarthy, and more importantly, he's reuniting with quarterback Aaron Rodgers. These aren't just casual connections either. We're talking about real chemistry that was built over years in Green Bay. Let me paint the picture for you. Robert Tonyan is 32 years old. He's not some fresh-faced rookie trying to break into the league. This is a seasoned veteran who has been around the block, who knows what it takes to compete at the highest level, and who has actually produced when given the opportunity. But here's where it gets really interesting. His best season came back in 2020. Remember that year? That was when Aaron Rodgers absolutely dominated the league and took home the MVP trophy. And guess who was one of his favorite targets in the red zone? You guessed it, Robert Tonyan. That season, Tonyan hauled in 11 touchdowns from Rodgers. 11. That's not just a decent year for a tight end. That's elite production. That's the kind of connection you don't just forget about. Now, the Steelers brought Tonyan in during their mandatory minicamp this week. They wanted to get a look at him, see if he still has something left in the tank, evaluate whether he fits what they're trying to do offensively. And, apparently, whatever they saw during those practices was impressive enough to earn him a spot on the 90-man off-season roster. That's not a guarantee he makes the final 53, but it's definitely a foot in the door. It's an opportunity. And for a guy like Tonyan, who's been bouncing around and trying to find a stable home, that opportunity is everything. So why does this matter? Why should Steelers fans care about a 32-year-old tight end who hasn't been a full-time starter since 2023? Well, let's break it down. First off, this is clearly an Aaron Rodgers move. Rodgers has a history of wanting guys around him that he trusts, that he has chemistry with, that he knows can execute in critical moments. We saw this last season when the Steelers brought in a couple of Rodgers' former teammates mid-year. Marquez, Valdez-Scantling, and others were mentioned as guys Rodgers pushed to have on the roster. Now, obviously, the Steelers have done a much better job addressing the receiver position this offseason, so we probably won't see more of those Rodgers buddies getting signed. But Tonyan is different. He's a tight end, and the tight end room could use some veteran depth. Here's the thing about Rodgers. He's been very vocal about his respect for Tonyan. On podcasts, in interviews, the guy speaks glowingly about what Tonyan brought to the Packers. That kind of endorsement carries weight. If your franchise quarterback is telling the front office that a certain player can help, you listen. You at least give that player a chance to prove it. And that's exactly what's happening here. Rodgers wanted a familiar face, someone who knows his tendencies, someone who can step in and contribute without needing weeks of adjustment. Tonyan fits that bill perfectly. But wait, there's even more to this story. this isn't just about Rodgers. Remember, Mike McCarthy is now the head coach in Pittsburgh. And guess who was the head coach in Green Bay when Tonyan first entered the league? That's right, Mike McCarthy. Back in 2018, the Packers signed Tonyan as an undrafted free agent. McCarthy was the one who gave him his first shot in the NFL. So, this reunion isn't just with Rodgers. Tonyan is walking into a building where both his former head coach and his former quarterback are waiting for him. Talk about a comfort level. Talk about familiarity. In a league where learning new systems and building new relationships can take months, Tonyan already has those connections established. Now, let's be realistic about what his role might look like. The Steelers' tight end room is actually pretty crowded right now. At the top, you've got Pat Freiermuth, who just got locked up on a long-term deal. He's the unquestioned starter, the guy who's going to be getting the majority of targets. Then there's Darnell Washington, the young beast who also just signed a massive extension worth $42 million over 4 years. The Steelers clearly see him as a major part of their future. And then you've got Riley Nowachinski, the 5th-round pick who's more of a hybrid fullback tight end type. He's versatile, he can block, he can catch, and he's pretty much a lock to make the roster because of that versatility. So, where does that leave Tonyan? Well, if the Steelers decide to carry 4 tight ends, he's in the mix for that 4th spot. But he's not the only candidate. There are a couple of undrafted guys who have been working hard to earn a roster spot. Blake McCree, out of USC, was brought in this year and has shown some flashes. Then there's J.J. Galbraith, who the Steelers signed last year. Galbraith actually had a really solid training camp and spent the season on the practice squad. The team brought him back this year, which tells you they see something in him. So Tonyan is going to have to compete. This isn't a guarantee. He's going to have to show up in training camp, perform in the preseason games, and prove that he deserves to be on this roster. But here's where it gets exciting. Tonyan has something those younger guys don't have. He has experience. He has a proven track record of producing at a high level when healthy and in the right system. He knows what it takes to win in this league, and, most importantly, he already has that chemistry with the quarterback. In practice, that's going to show up immediately. Rodgers is going to know where Tonyan is going to be. Tonyan is going to know how Rodgers likes to throw certain routes. That kind of connection can't be taught overnight. It's built over years, and they already have it. From a contract standpoint, this is a low-risk move for the Steelers. We're probably talking about a 1-year deal at veteran minimum. It's not breaking the bank. It's not affecting their salary cap situation in any meaningful way. It's simply bringing in a veteran body to compete and add depth. If Tonyan makes the roster, fantastic. If he doesn't, he'll probably land on the practice squad where he can still provide value as an emergency option. Either way, the Steelers aren't losing anything by taking this chance. And let's talk about fan reaction for a second. Steelers Nation has been pretty mixed on this one. Some fans are excited because they remember that 2020 season when Tonyan was catching touchdowns left and right. They see the potential for him to be a red zone weapon again, especially with Rodgers throwing him the ball. Other fans are more skeptical. They point out that Tonyan is 32, that he struggled badly in 2023 with the Bears, and that he's been bouncing around practice squads ever since. They wonder if he's washed up, if his best days are way behind him. Honestly, both sides have valid points. The optimists see the upside. If Tonyan can recapture even a fraction of what he was in 2020, He could be a valuable contributor in the red zone and on third downs. The pessimists see the risk. Father Time is undefeated, and tight ends who rely on athleticism often decline sharply once they hit their 30s. But again, this is a minimal investment. The Steelers aren't counting on Tonyan to be a starter. They're just adding depth and seeing if there's anything left in the tank. What's really interesting to think about is how this affects the overall offensive strategy. Arthur Smith, the new offensive coordinator, loves using multiple tight end sets. He loves creating mismatches and using play action to set up big plays downfield. Having a veteran like Tonyan who understands route concepts and can exploit zone coverage could be really valuable in that system. Even if he's just a situational player, even if he's only on the field for 10 to 15 snaps a game, those snaps could be critical. And here's some more news to keep on your radar. The Steelers have been on an absolute spending spree lately. They just gave Chris Boswell the biggest kicker contract in NFL history. They handed Nick Herbig, their third edge rusher, $25 million per year on a 4-year extension. And, as I mentioned, Darnell Washington just got paid big time. But they're not done yet. There are reports coming out that Keanu Benton, the defensive tackle, is currently in negotiations for a long-term extension. Joey Porter Jr. is also expected to get locked up soon. The Steelers are clearly going all in on keeping their young core together. They're building something special, and they want to make sure the key pieces are around for the long haul. So, what happens next? Well, the Steelers still have OTAs to get through. Then it's on to training camp in Latrobe, which is always one of the most exciting times of the year for Steelers fans. That's where roster battles are won and lost. That's where guys like Tonyan will have to prove they belong.